That was the Gavotte, the Allegro from Sonata No. 9 by Giovanni Zamboni. And follow the lesson for free. We're just going to be talking a little bit about this dance and the counterpoint involved. But if you're interested, I do have an edition, a sheet music edition of all the movements in Sonata No. 9. And this is the final one, so we've already done a whole bunch of them. And if you're interested, there's a link for the sheet music in the description. So in this particular movement, which comes as the final movement, we have a little bit different of a texture. Most of the textures so far have been more of like that baroque gallant style where there's a flowing, very flowing musical line, counterpoint for sure, more than one voice, but like usually one very dominant musical line that you can kind of follow through, or at least a flowing musical line that you can really track through the piece. And in this particular piece, though, we have a much more clear two-voice counterpoint. So practicing the two voices on their own makes a lot of sense, especially in this particular movement. So if we look at the top voice with stems going up, then we have a very clear independent voice. And if we look at the bass voice played with the thumb, the down stems, we also have an independent voice. And at the end, we actually have a third voice in the inner voice as well. And same thing goes for the second half of the piece. So once you've put them together, I would recommend that you, of course, then start practicing them at the same time. But one thing I'll caution is that the bass is so busy that it can get very distracting. All this activity and all this attack in the thumb. So I would really center your ear on the upper voice more, because the lower voice, you'll hear it and it's going to just keep pounding out. But having that more sustained upper voice going is really useful. So what I'll do sometimes is I'll just play the first time through up when I'm practicing. I'll just play the top voice and then add in the lower voice on the repeat. I find that just kind of like calms me down, makes me think about the upper line and its sustain. Also gets me more centered on the cut time pulse, the half note. So it's just a nice way to kind of like practice the piece to make sure that your ear is drawn towards both voices equally to some extent. Even though I kind of consider the upper voice a slightly more important voice, not more important, but more musically interesting than the busy bass line that's happening. And same thing in the second half. So let's just do a walkthrough of the piece now, and I'll just point out a couple of fingering things and one or two ornaments. I don't add much ornamentation to this particular movement because it's actually a little bit challenging. It's not that difficult. I mean, it's all like kind of first position. But it's active. Once you start picking up the tempo, it is somewhat active, as it always is with counterpoints, some finger independence stuff. So I'll go much slower here. Not much to talk about through here. That non-chord tone A resolves to the G sharp, so feel free to push a little bit and then softly resolve that note. On the second time through, I add a little ornament on that note, but you don't have too much time if your tempo is high. You could add lots of ornamentation throughout the piece if you go at a slower tempo. Second half. Bit more of a handful, but very straightforward too. There I chose 1, 3, 2, 4. You have to jump the third finger over pretty quick, but at least that thick counterpoint there gets covered. here, lots of debate as to what fingering you could use. You could use a hinge bar, you know, just hinging the bottom C and then get the upper note. I decided, because of the tempo, to use my second finger, then go into the bar chord. I just found it's a little bit cleaner and more straightforward in terms of the. Sometimes with a hinge bar, it's just easy to get sloppy with the technique at faster tempos anyway. So sometimes I'll opt for something different like that. So second finger on C, that way your bar can be getting ready and just go right into it. There is a repeated A. In the original, that A does drop down an octave. Of course, we can't on the modern guitar. So I do include it on when I do the repeat. But when I end the piece, I just leave it out. Add a little trill before, and then just end the piece on a chord. Lots of options. You could do like some kind of arpeggiation or something, but I went really simple with this particular one because of the kind of like the plain texture that it is. It's not that it's plain, but it's just like a really two voice clear dance. So that's pretty much it. Focus on the individual lines, put them together, make sure you feel the half note pulse and that you're sustaining that upper voice properly. And then just smooth out a couple of little things in terms of counterpoint, and then you're good to go.